This warm winter beverage has its origins in folklore and could be connected all the way back to Roman times. It was meant to wake up apple trees and evolved into going door to door singing carols during the 12 days of Christmas. We're exploring the history and origins of Wassail. I'm Glenn Warren, and welcome to another serving of Seasons Eatings, the podcast which explores the history and origins of your favorite Christmas foods. Seasons Eatings can be found wherever you download your favorite podcasts. If you haven't already, I would ask you to subscribe. That way you won't miss an episode when it's released, and all future episodes will be available without you having to search for them. If you can please take a minute and leave me a 5-star review, I would greatly appreciate it. Reviews help others find the podcast and help me know you're enjoying what I'm doing. And if you let me know you've left a review, I'll send you a Seasons Eatings sticker as a personal thank you. Seasons Eatings is also found on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. All the links can be found in the show notes, which can be found on seasonseatingspodcast.com. And while you're there, you can buy me an eggnog. Just click on the little coffee cup on the top of the page and leave a donation for as little as $3. Each donation is used for the running of the podcast and its general upkeep, so any help would be wonderful. And finally, you can let me know how I'm doing, leave a suggestion for a future episode, or just even say hello at seasonseatingspodcast@gmail.com. So this is a bonus episode for the Burr months of the year. In previous seasons, I've done something called the side dish, and focus on foods or ingredients that don't necessarily get the main focus during the holidays. This year I thought I'd do something a little different, and I'm calling it the second helpings. I'm basically reheating an old episode and giving it a little bit more history. This time I'm diving a little deeper into the history of Wassail. Wassail, wassail, all over the town, our toast is white and our ale is brown. Our bowl it's made of the white maple tree, of the wassailing bowl, we'll drink to thee. When you hear the lyrics aloud to the Gloucestershire Wassail Carol, you can almost feel that cup of hot alcohol in your hand as you drunkenly sway to and fro, singing at the top of your lungs around the Christmas tree. The drink, wassail, conjures images of caroling revelers dressed in boughs of holly and fir, with wooden crocks full of good cheer in a Bacchus-type parade through the city streets. It's nostalgia wrapped in a warm blanket of mulled wine, nutmeg, and floating orange slices. A celebratory holiday gathered around a high, decorative punch bowl. But Wassail has a little bit of a muddled heritage. Is it the warm alcohol? Is it an action verb? A hearty salutation? A song? Yes, it's all of these things, and it includes a storied family tree rooted in tradition and branched out in nearly every direction over a millennium. First, let's rewind to a castle in 5th century Britain, where Rowena, the beautiful daughter of a Saxon leader, seduces an incredibly inebriated King Vortigern with a goblet of spiced wine, giving the first recorded toast in history to his good health by crying out, "Wassail." Taken by her beauty, he immediately beds, then weds the girl after ordering her to drink of the same cup and exclaiming, "Drink hail, drink and good health." This moment in British history becomes the foundation on which 1,000 years of wassail tradition springs forth, and it's said to be the first documented toast in history. Well, seems legit, right? So whether we are to believe a drunken king wearing wine goggles is charmed into bed, then marriage by a potion-bearing Saxon babe, thus inadvertently setting the course of Western world's drinking culture, is neither here nor there. The point is, it's a great story. One of the many attributed to the history and lore which seem to surround Wassail. No one really knows what was in that goblet. Was it spiced wine? Was it mead? Was it ale? It really doesn't matter. Wassail was not a drink that night. It was simply a salutation, a toast among drinking buddies celebrating the good health of their friend, the king. Whatever the case, the salute stuck. The word as we know it today, wassail, first appears in an 8th century poem, Beowulf. In the poem, it again not as a drink, but a salute to its warriors. Forlorn he looks on the lodge of his son, wine hall waste and wind-swept chambers reft of revel. The rider sleepeth, the hero far hidden, no harp resounds in courts, no wassail as once was heard. Wassailing is a very ancient custom that's rarely done today. The word wassail comes from the Anglo-Saxon phrase wassail, as we heard, which actually means good health. The act of wassailing dates back to pre-Christian times, when farmers living in England's southeastern apple-growing region would gather in the midwinter chill by the orchards, collectively shouting while pouring cider into their trees to ward off evil spirits. By wassailing their crops in the winter, it was said to ensure a healthy crop in the spring. And as Christianity began to spread, this ritual evolved further into singing and drinking to the health of next season's crops on Twelfth Night, the last night of the traditional Christmas season. It seemed only appropriate to attach the celebration of Christ's birth and his visit from 3 wise men with the hope for a good yield in the orchards in the coming year. It also assured them not being burned as heretics under the ever-watchful eye of the church. Originally, the wassail was a drink made of mulled ale, curdled cream, roasted apples, eggs, cloves, ginger, nutmeg, and sugar. It was served from huge bowls, often made of silver or pewter. Jesus College in Oxford University has a wassail bowl that is covered in silver. It actually can hold 10 gallons of drink. And wassailing was traditionally done on the New Year's Eve and 12th night, but some rich people actually drank wassail on all of the 12 days of Christmas. The wassail drink was also sometimes called lamb's wool because of the pulp of the roasted apples. The way they looked all frothy looked actually a little bit like lamb's wool. By the 14th century, someone decided to morph the old story of King Vortigern and Rowena, their boozy salute and the passing of the loving cup, yet again. This time, the act of door-to-door drinking took a cue from the simple act of saluting and celebrating to a healthy, happy new year. Crowds of carolers would visit their neighbors rather than their masters with the large wassailing bowl filled with a spiced punch of mulled wine or ale, nutmeg, and sugar. People would then dip toasted bread into the mixture to soak up the flavor and share in the merriment. This band of intoxicated carousers unwittingly created our modern word to toast by simply floating a few bits of bread in a bowl of ale. But it was here the act of wassailing and its drink would forever merge, forming one of cocktail's most enduring partnerships. The second form of wassailing seems to originate in the late 16th century. Ronald Hutton's Rise and Fall of Merry England suggests a first recorded instance in Fordwick, Kent in 1585, before it reappears in Devon in the 1630s. Then again in the diary of a Sussex parson in 1670. It's involved a visit to an orchard, though the exact date varies depending on location, from Christmas Eve to Twelfth Night, by a wassailing party going to cheer loudly, sing songs under the trees, hit them with sticks or pans, fire muskets, and pour cider on their roots, and even push cider-soaked pieces of toast into the branches. The aim being to wake up the tree from its winter slumber and encourage it to produce a good crop the following year. It was clearly well established in the 17th century, as in 1648, poet Robert Herrick mentioned the tradition in his Hesperides collection. Wassail the trees, that they may bear you many a plum and many a pear. For more or less as fruits they will bring, as you do give them wassailing. The purpose of singing is actually to wake the trees and scare away any evil spirits. The singers will also place cider-soaked bread in the branches of the trees to also ward off the evil spirits. There is an English folklore spirit called the Apple Tree Man, who is honored during the wassailing. The Apple Tree Man is the name of the oldest tree in the orchard, and it's believed that the fertility of the orchard as a whole derives from this tree spirit. Extra attention is given to the eldest tree in the orchard, and people may honor the spirit by pouring cider onto the roots. As with all modern folklore traditions, we may never really know the true origins, but I think it's pretty clear that this practice of wassailing the orchards taps into ancient pagan practices and beliefs. And wassailing as a practice does not just occur in the orchard. People take their singing door to door. This was kind of like a trick-or-treat version of caroling, where people would sing but usually expect some kind of payment. This practice fits in with the idea that the holidays were a time where social expectations would be lifted. During the holidays, the poor expected privileges which were usually denied to them. This included the right to enter the homes of the wealthy and drink their booze in return for singing a wassailing song or two. These activities were known as misrule and were often presided over by a lord of misrule who coordinated all kinds of inappropriate revelry. These misrule traditions go actually all the way back to Saturnalia activities were ancient Rome and were translated into the Twelfth Night celebrations still practiced today. And traditionally, wassail was drunk in a bowl, not a glass, so it was actually a communal bowl, and often people would dip their bread in the bowl or float toasted bread on the top of the drink. Wassail bowls, generally in the shape of large goblets, have been preserved. The Worshipful Company of Grocers made a very elaborate one in the 17th century, decorated with silver. In the English Christmas carol, Gloucestershire Wassail, the singers tell that their bowl is made of the white maple tree. As white maple doesn't grow natively in Europe, the lyric may be a reference to sycamore maple or a field maple, both of which do, and both of which have a white-looking wood. This is actually reinforced in the 1890s from a written account from a man describing the wassailing bowl to his friend from Gloucestershire. The bowl is one of those wooden sycamore or maple ones used to hold boiled potatoes on a farm kitchen table. And there are even surviving examples of puzzle wassail bowls. They have many spouts, so as you attempt to take a drink from one of the spouts, you are drenched with the wassail from another spout. Now, we'll talk about other types of warm drinks similar to wassail after the break.
Hi, I'm Chris.
And I'm Chris. We're a married couple living in New York City.
If you're listening to this podcast, you probably love Christmas just as much as we do.
In our podcast, Christmas Time in the City, we talk about the history and traditions of the holidays in New York City. The Rockefeller Center Christmas tree, caroling in Washington Square Park, New Year's Eve in Times Square, the classic Christmas movies filmed here, we cover it all.
In Listener Mail, we answer questions from listeners like you that may be planning a trip or maybe just curious about us.
And in Christmas Confidential, we read anonymous listener-submitted Christmas confessions to help people finally get their deepest Yuletide secrets off their chest.
So subscribe now wherever you listen to podcasts, and we'll talk to you soon.
Unless you don't want to, then just forget about it.
Really?
What, too much?
No, it's fine.
On the Snow in Southtown Christmas podcast, we discuss Christmas movies, Christmas music, and we have fun segments where we always talk about something weird and something fun related to Christmas on each episode.
If we're tired of making fun of Michael Bublé, I might recommend Pentatonics.
I'm not going to play U2 on this podcast.
Thank you.
He's eating ice cream and crunch taters. He's just partying, man.
Thank God it's them instead of you, right?
I was going to say he was rolling over in his grave, but I don't think he's dead. But
well, he's still doing it.
when he heard Patti LaBelle, he dug his grave and he rolled in it. How about 10s and 20s?
10s and 20s.
Be sure to check out our website at snowinsouthtown.wordpress.com, where you'll find links to our Facebook, our Twitter, and our Discord.
Yeah, I'd like the tiny tots, please. You made some small tater tots?
Yeah,
your tiny tots.
He told him the whole time. They do one beagle. Fire that up.
Speaking my language now.
You can stream our podcast at iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher Radio, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
It's a problematic movie. Yeah, we should pee together at least once per decade, really.
He is now with Snow and Southtown because
he's jingling those bells.
Some
jingling them bells.
Jingling those bells.
Look what you did, you little jerk.
Check out Snow and Southtown.
You won't regret it. And by won't, I mean will.
Because in the northern hemisphere the Christmas season happens during the winter, it's obviously common to find warm beverages created for the season. Another popular Christmas drink similar to Wassail is a mulled wine. Basically, red wine is heated with spices such as cinnamon, cardamom, anise, and cloves, and dried fruit like slices of orange are added to give a slight citrus flavor to the wine. Mulled wine actually originated in the 2nd century. It was created by the Romans, who would heat wine to defend their bodies against the cold winter, especially in the northern climates like England. As the Romans conquered much of Europe throughout the next century, their love for mulled wine spread across their empire and into the regions they traded with. The legions brought wine and viticulture with them up to the Rhine and the Danube rivers and to the Scottish border along with their recipes. The form of curry, which is a medieval English cookery book from 1390, I reference many times in my Peps episodes, especially about the history and origins of figgy pudding, that also mentions mulled wine. It gives you this recipe. Per fe hypocras, grinding together cinnamon, ginger, galangal, which is a type of ginger, cloves, long pepper, nutmeg, marjoram, cardamom, and grains of paradise. This is mixed with red wine and sugar. And of course, the form and the quantity is unstated. By the Renaissance, wassailing had a firm foothold in England's Christmas traditions. The drunken band of rabble-rousers banging on doors begging for figgy pudding was now simply spreading good cheer door to door in the village while singing Christmas carols with a punch bowl of sweetened spiced ale. But it was during the 17th century that the liquid inside the bowl finally started to take center stage in the merry ritual of Christmas, and is now a 500-year love affair with apples. The rich punch-like mixture, also was called lamb's wool, as I'd said, was considered the wassail drink of choice for the Christmas punch bowl of the day. Now, it contained a warm ale, sugar, nutmeg, eggs, toast, and crabs. Now, I'm not talking about the crustaceans. I'm actually talking about crab apples. So, steaming, roasted crab apples dropped in the still hot of the warm punch. And once they hit the punch, they would burst open make a hissing sound as the mixture frothed and bubbled. And the crabs gave the punch a tart sweetness while adding a bit of drama. As its popularity continued to grow throughout the Middle Ages, Europeans would mix heated wine with spices because they actually believed it would promote health and avoid sickness. And they would also use these herbs and flowers as natural sweeteners to make unpalatable wines taste a lot nicer. Over time, the craze for mulled wine faded as most of Europe, except for Sweden, where its popularity basically increased. Claret, which is red wine, sugar, honey, and spices, or Lutendrank, which is various spices, wine, and milk, are just two of the variations that the Swedish monarchy made famous over the coming centuries. As more alternatives developed over wine, recipe books started using collective name glögg, first mentioned in 1609. The next big adaptation took place in the 1800s, where cognac started to become popular too. Glögg recipes vary widely. Variations start with white or sweet wine or spirits such as brandy or cognac. And the production of glögg begins by boiling the water and then adding the spices to the boiling water. And then after a few minutes, the mixture is sieved and with fruit juice, wine, or clear spirits are added. Of course, the most common spices are kind of the warming spices. We have cloves, cinnamon, cardamom, and ginger. And you can add other common ingredients such as citrus peel from oranges or lemons, raisins, and almonds. Both forms of wassailing, that is the drink and the singing, lasted well into the 19th and early 20th centuries, particularly in apple-growing communities in the southwest of England. Wassailing ceremonies are becoming popular again as community gatherings in the 21st century, with events being staged in places such as Wolvercote and Beckley and Stowood in Oxfordshire. There is even a few in the apple-growing communities in Ontario when I was living there. We'd have a farm that would have a wassail basically celebration just after or in the new year. But what if you don't feel like making your own wassail? Some actually breweries have started to make their own versions in, I guess, beer form. I would say it would be more like a alcoholic apple juice. However you take your wassail, it's sure to keep you warm and toasty this holiday season. Thank you for listening to this serving of Seasons Eatings. Seasons Eatings is available wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Please, if you can leave a review about the show so we can spread the Christmas cheer. Also, I would love to hear from you. Send me an email at seasonseatingspodcast@gmail.com to let me know how you like the show, suggestions for future episodes, or just to say hi. And if you know, let me know you've left a review. I'll send you a Seasons Eating sticker for your trouble, as well as my unwavering gratitude. And if you're feeling extra generous this season, you can buy me an eggnog. Head on over to seasonseatingspodcast.com and click on the little cup in the corner. All the music for the Seasons Eatings podcast is used under the Creative Commons license.